Hello and welcome to this video. This video is going to be called Technique versus Emotion Part 1, or it might be called Technique versus Feel Part 1. But it's basically going to examine a discussion that crops up continually on the internet, on YouTube, where certain people are saying you need to practice and you need to have your skills in place for you to be able to play. And then another contingent go, well, no, you don't. It should all be about feel. Or somewhere in the middle where they're going, yeah, you do need your chops, but that will not help you to play well. There's another X factor involved that you need to learn, which is much more about feel and emotion and what you're playing, what you hear in your head. And for me, this conversation is too esoteric and in a way, not esoteric enough, right? And I thought I could do something about this. I can actually contribute to this in a way which I think no one else has contributed to. And I've come up with a structure for these videos, which will be very straightforward and simple. I always like a straightforward and simple structure. I'm going to come here a couple of times a week. I'm going to practice. I'm going to set my camera up and I am going to film that practice completely unadulterated, unedited, and I'm going to put those up so that people can actually go, well, that's the way Andy Edwards is practicing, and I'm going to let them work out what they think is going on. Now, those videos will be available to the members only. Now, the reason is because I know how YouTube works, and I know if I start putting up unedited practice videos where I will go wrong. I've just done one now and I'm pushing my technique, exploring what I can play and what I can't play, and I'm getting to walls. I'm hitting brick walls and then I'm going out, and what I'm doing is I've got a symbol. If I put my hands up against the camera because it's above my head, if I put my hands up, that means I've just gone wrong. And then you can see how I then back up and then practice in a different way to try and embellish those skills. Something that I hope I can get across is the two positions that everyone's arguing exist at the same time. And there's one, it's great to say that that is true, right? And that's the case. But I thought you've got to show people how that's true. You've got to show them it actually working so they can see the minutiae, rather than just say that as a general idea and then coming up with some exercises that could improve that, which in the end are just exercises that people are playing by rote. I could show how I practice, and hopefully people will glean something more than just being told something. So what you're going to have here is a video of me talking. I'm going to give the information across, and you can see that in the background, you can see the practice regime. When I think there's a good bit, I'll stop talking and you'll get to, see that I can play and I'm doing something quite good, or something that I deem is quite good. Now, all of these things I am highlighting for you are massively important in terms of practice. So let's start right at the beginning. I'm out of practice. This year, I haven't practiced. I don't think I've practiced at all this year, except I've been exploring hand technique on a practice pad at home, and I have been trying to learn traditional grip, okay? But apart from that, I haven't sat down behind a drum kit. Now, I've endeavoured over the last few months to sort my studio out, which means at this end I now have all my lovely albums, but at that end I now have 2 drum kits, and they're all set up, and the one is completely mic'd up, and it's nice and comfortable, and it's in a nice place for me to be right next to my computer. And so that makes me want to come down here a little bit and get behind the kit, but not enough. I found that I was coming down here to practice, and then I was thinking, I can't be arsed, there's more important things to do. Now, what are the more important things to do? Well, it might be stuff that you enjoy less than drumming. It might be the fact that you've got to get on with your life. If you're an adult, you've got to make sure the bills are paid and you've got to do all that type of stuff. And when you've got all that done, the idea that you've got the space in your mind to practice is difficult. When I was a kid and I didn't want to go to school, I would stay at home and practice all day. There was the motivation. I love drumming. I still love drumming now. I've just been drumming now and I've been enjoying it. Right? But real life gets in the way for me. Now, on the other side of that, when I was a proper pro drummer and I used to have tours and stuff like that in the book, I didn't necessarily practice hard stuff or technical stuff or new stuff. I practiced the stuff that I was learning. And when I got into the progressive rock world, that stuff was quite tricky. So I learned to play that stuff and eventually I got good at doing that. I was also doing masterclasses and drum clinics, so I would also work on technique. And one of the things that pushed my technique up as a player was having to do drum clinics. Now, that is motivation. Now, I'm going to do a whole video on motivation, because if you don't get up in the morning and start practicing, the rest of it is a waste of time. You have to nail motivation, right? The next thing is what you're playing. There has to be some sort of quality control in what you're doing, okay? So I have always filmed myself playing. Now, I believe that if you're playing full out, really playing and practicing, you've probably got about 30 minutes in you. 30 minutes a day playing like that will sort it out. It won't get you all the way there. There's something else you need to do, and I'll explain that on these videos as well. But you're gonna have to stick around, because I can't tell you everything in one go. And what I'm trying to get across here to you guys who are drummers is that there's a lot of stuff. It's hard. There's a lot of stuff to keep up in here, and you have to have it all in here to be able to access it in the right way. I'm not the best drummer in the world. I'm not the most technical, which means that there's certain aspects of the map of how to play and how to practice and motivation that I haven't got quite right. I believe if I could get that right, and so fundamentally, if I was motivated correctly to do the right exercises in the right way, I could play anything that anybody else played. So this key is down to motivation, but it's also down to quality. I've found that if I film myself practicing, then I take it home and watch it, I instinctively go, oh, this is terrible. And I know in my gut what I need to go and practice the next day based upon what I was doing before. I might think something, and this is usually the thing, I think, yeah, there's all this technique and chops you're doing, Andy, but the timing's not great. I think, yeah, but I wasn't really worried about the timing. I was playing more free. I know, but timing is more important. So you need to come and work in your time. So that will be the thing I work on next. By videoing it, you will be able to see where you need to work. Everybody knows this. If you record yourself and watch yourself, you'll go, God, I know what I've got to work on. And then go work on those things. It's quite a natural process. But also, when you're doing something good, right, you will be able to identify it's good. So this process that I will be going, oh, that was quite cool there, and then bringing that forward for you to have a look at. What you'll see is in the background, I'm talking over me practicing, but when the practice works, I can go, right now, have a look at that. That came out of that bit of practice, and you might be able to track it through. So there's lots of information going on. Now, some of you might think this is a little bit confusing. I don't care, because the artistic musical aspect here, which is represented in this video by me playing, right? And the talking, the intellectual aspect, those two things need to be brought together. Now, I'm going to try and bring them together here. And I know the key when I mix this will be the volume level of my playing. The talking on this video is more important. I may have no volume, it might just be silent, but I think I just need enough for you to know there's drumming on, but you don't necessarily need to see it. Now you might say, well, what's the point in that? Well, there's lots of information going in at the moment. And one of the things I used to say to my students, another esoteric thing I'm going to tell you now, if you really want to improve your technique, put a video of a drummer on and switch the sound off or turn the sound down. Then your eyes start to feed in rather than your ears. And when your eyes start to feel in, you will notice things about that player, good and bad, right? This is part of the aspect of what this is. I have positioned the camera above me so you can really see the ergonomics of me moving around the kit. As this video carries on, you will see that I lower the hi-hats and I move the snare drum to the left, right? The ergonomics is really, really important to your practice. And putting something in a certain place changes your practice instantaneously. And I'm all for practicing and feeling a change there and then, minuscule as it may be. And part of the reason that I am practicing now, part of the thing that's come out of that is I've been learning traditional grip. I came down here and tried to play traditional grip after spending about 2 weeks making sure I got the hand. Now I feel I've got the hand position right and I can do it, but when I come to play it on the kit, trying to get it to link up to the musical part, the very thing that we're talking about, is not happening. Part of the reason was that is because I play match grip, my kit's a lot lower. So I've had to create a compromise of bringing the snare drum up. Now, bringing the snare drum up has pushed me backwards, which is what I want. But I'm lazy, so when I practice, because I want to just get the instant hit of playing and feeling it, I'll bring my snare drum and go, oh, I'm starting to click the snare drum, so I'll knock it back down. And I'm sure many of you are doing this. You are putting the drums into an easier position to play with your bad technique. If you don't know where it should be, this is where you need a teacher or me, and you need to message me and say, please do a video on ergonomics. I don't know what you're talking about. And I'll do it. It's quite simple, right? So I have made a compromise between the height of the snare, so I could play easier as traditional grip. But the main aspect for me on this practice routine is to be able to play match grip at a higher level. You may hear as I'm practicing, if you go and watch the video, that I am hitting the rim of the snare drum every now and then. But slowly, I will be able to change my position. And when I say slowly, in terms of practice time, very quickly, a couple of days and I will have completely readjusted and my technique should be better for pushing me up, right, and get me into the right ergonomic position where I can play both traditional and match grip. Now, this is all quite technical what I'm discussing, but one of the things I'm not talking about is specific exercises. If somebody comes out on YouTube and says you need to do this exercise or this is really good for that, that's not how you practice. You have to practice at the point of the thing that will make you better, but will also facilitate you to be able to play musically what you want to play. The overriding thing I want you to get across from this video is I sit down and start playing, and what I'm playing sort of looks like a drum solo all the way through. I don't stop unless I go wrong. I'm starting from a position of trying to tell a story drumming. Part of the thing I'm practicing is doing a drum solo. In future episodes, I might just be grooving for like half an hour, 20 minutes. But in this case, I was soloing. And so, in essence, what's going on here is I'm using the drum solo as my musical grounding motif. There are hundreds of these, and within the drum solo, there is also a multitude of different grounding motifs. So what does that mean? That means that we're a drummer, and because we're a drummer, we're trying to get technically better, but we're also trying to play music. And music means submitting to a set of rules. It could be a song, that's a set of rules. And within the rules of a song, there may be leeway for you to improvise and things that you've got to play for it to seem like the song. There is always these two aspects of drumming. There is always the continual repetitive or structured thing which you can't change, and there is always the area for improvisation. Even if you're playing a classical piece of music, classical musicians still play like this, in that they are trying to play the composition that's written down in front of them. It's a set of notes. So that's the stuff they can't change. But within the dynamics and the speed and a whole bunch of parameters that are not on that page, they are allowed from their heart to express it. This is why classical musicians are artists the same as jazz musicians, because they express themselves within those parameters. If you're a jazz musician and you're playing, there's a different set of parameters, and in certain cases, they're more restrictive than the classical musician, right? So they have to adhere to that, but the emphasis on a certain type of improvisation within jazz becomes part of the blueprint. But that very aspect of playing itself, improvisation, becomes one of the things that's set in stone. When I practice, fundamentally, what's going on is I am picking certain scenarios that I know very well, which contain a definitive thing I have to do and an improvisational thing that I'm allowed to express myself within. And these are immensely specific. And this is the thing that I don't really notice on the internet. Although the 80-20 drummer, the guy that inspired me to do this video with his take on it, he mentioned the fact of taking something that you've learned, you've been practicing, and putting it into an improvisational structure. Now, if you go online and ask people about this, it will be, well, do the exercise and then, take some fills, do fours. Now, fours is an improvisational structure where you'd play something like a groove or a beat for 4 bars, and then you'd improvise for 4 bars. But if you watch my video, you will see I am utilising a whole ream and raft of improvisational structures. And so shall I run through some of those now? Right, so one of the things I'm doing is having the structure that I'm going to improvise from slow and quiet to loud, right? And if you watch the solo, that is the structure. If you call it a drum solo that you're watching now, that's the whole structure. Now, the thing I like about that is I can start off slow, start to push the speed, start to push the technique, and I can start to get a feel for where I am. And I'm as rusty as an old rusty nail at the moment. So I gauge that and I can feel that. Then I go off on my big practice routine. And then at the end of this, I return back and I start to play some faster stuff. And that faster stuff felt stronger and it felt faster. So I went, well, that job's done. Once I start to get into this, there are a whole bunch of structures I'm using. So I may play something, a repeated pattern between one half of my body. It might be my right hand and my right foot. It might be keeping my hands the same and utilising my feet to improvise, or the other way around. That is a very, very common way I practice. Is I take the thing, I reduce it down, and then using an ostinato technique, I then try and play against that. That is one of the few things I utilise. Another thing I utilise is if I've got a repeated pattern, say with my feet, I will try and run rhythmic scales. Now, I did this a number of times in this solo, and I'm not too sure how successful I was. It wasn't 100%, but I was able to feel why it wasn't 100%. So rhythmical scales is you take a pattern, here it exists like this, and then you will put one beat in that space, and then you will put two beats in that space, and then you will put three beats, 4, 5, 6, 7. I usually go up to 12. On this video, I went up to 9. The pattern I played with my feet was an ostinato that was in 12. It was a tripleted pattern that I moved across my feet, flanging the hi-hat, and the whole thing cycled round in 12. Once I got that steady, I tried to play one flam at the start, and then two flams, and then a 3 over the 12, a 4 over the 12, a 5 over the 12. This is one of the bonkers things I've done for many years in terms of my practice routine. I don't suggest you do that, but the reason I do this is because I want the freedom to be able to pull on those tuplets whenever I want and over whatever I want. So this has become a feature of my playing. So that would be another structure. I could play 4s, I could play a groove and then try and solo against it. I could try and hold down a very simple time with right hand and play against it with my left. Sometimes I will have a structure which is try and nail something hands and feet, and then when you've got it, try and move it around the kit. Now, I have to be honest, all these things are so tightly graded in my mind. It's like I can access them, and I can access them at will. I can play doing a musical drum solo and go, you just went for that, Andy. That wasn't very good. That's because your left hand and your left foot. And the big thing that emerged on this was trying to play singles between my left hand and my left foot. Right, and you can see, even though it seems to keep going as a solo, when I get to that exercise, I do a number of exercises, not for hours, but for a few minutes, I just hold there, and it stops being a solo, and it starts to become just practice. Also, I did a number of exercises where I really sped the speed of my singles up with my feet. You can see that. Again, once I got that, I tried to play rhythmical scales over the top of those. So I was trying to play, 1 over 4, then 2 over 4, and then 3 over 4. I think I started with 4 over 4 and tried to work up. And I tried to move between 4 over 4 and 5 over 4. If this sounds all very complex and mind-boggling to you, then... And it would to me, I've been playing for 45 years. This practice routine that I use has developed. It's one practice routine. It's my practice routine. Now, tomorrow, I could be coming down here, switching the computer on, and I might have a groove up there that's in like 19 time, or it might just be a funk groove that's really slow. And I might spend half an hour playing over that. I will do whatever I feel motivated to do. And I want my motivation to line up with what I have felt, not intellectually decided, what I have instinctively felt I need to work on. I haven't played for a long time. So that solo you saw there was me just like warming up, oiling the cogs, seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work. I know that time is going to be an issue because I haven't played for a while, and that's always the thing that starts to get a bit rocky, is the time. That's interesting. The chops and be able to play around the kit, there's rusty, but I can access that a lot easier. So on this first video, you can see I am talking very practically, trying to identify a multitude of actually quite complex structures that I'm practicing in. None of these are exercises. Right, so let's get right down to the mundane before I go to the esoteric. Most of the practice I do at home is on a pad, and I practice striking the drum. Most of the time I have a pad and one stick. I will work on my right hand and then my left hand. I don't so much practice rudiments. I have a bit of a sort of weird approach to rudiments in that I see rudiments as being mixtures of stickings, which should be singles, doubles, a single and a double and a single. There's 4 stickings. Then you've got unison strokes, and unison strokes will also relate to flams and drags, which also relate to doubles. Double technique is then related to multiples, triples, quadruples. All those aspects of hitting the drum I practice before I get to the rudiments. Now, rudimentally, I think quite simply in terms of my hands: paradiddles, paradiddle-diddles, compound triplets, a few flam things. It's not much stuff really. That's not a big deal for me. But my ability to improvise with those is. That's related to rhythmical structures, the 16th note series and the 8th note series and the sextuplet and triplet series. And I practice those a lot. A lot of that practice I don't need sticks for. So I have practice I can do at a pad at home. I have rhythmical practice, which is in my head almost. There. So here I went. They're 5s. I can practice that without a stick, playing quintuplets. We can practice that sat here right now. It's amazing. So when you sat on the kit, I really believe you need to play. You need to play as much as you practice. Now, the only thing where that doesn't work is so much with your feet. Last year, I decided to speed my feet up. It took me 6 months to do. It was horrendous. I was getting up every morning and basically just doing a whole bunch of horrible exercises. If you want to know how to speed up with your feet, in doing those exercises over 6 months, I learned a lot. My mind was open. I started with all the exercises that everyone says on the internet and what are in the books and what I know as a drum teacher. But as I got into it, for you to improve, you get up to this place where you don't know. And the only way to fill that void in is to go to a teacher that does know and let them try and communicate that to you, which is the best way of doing it. Or you're up against this black wall of chaos. You have to throw chaos into that and see what comes back. Again, this video is an introduction to technique versus feel. And I can do a whole video on that in the future. I did do a video quite recently where I wanted to do some drumming on the channel. It was really involved. I recorded it properly. It took about 2 days to mix. I thought, nah, can't do that. I've got to be able to just set my camera up, camera audio. But then you get all the fluctuations. So I thought, I will talk separately and you can watch the exercises and we'll divorce people from that. Hopefully you will become a member. You can see the ulterior motive. Ulterior motive here is to get people to sign up. Drummers who might not have signed up before because they might think this is more of a prog channel, but drummers might go, I'm going to sign up to Andy's thing because I'm going to get a whole bunch of these sort of practice regimes that he's doing. I'm going to be able to watch them, and I don't need a teacher. All I've got to do is see what Andy's up to, listen to what he's saying, and then I can probably glean, and you will be able to. Most of the things that we need to do are intuitive. The non-intuitive or counterintuitives is when you get up against that black wall and you think, I've done all these exercises for a month now and it's not improving. Why? Go to a drum teacher and they don't know, so they fob you off by saying, oh, well, you need to learn some Latin American drumming or do more work on your paradiddles. Because that's how they make their money. That's no good. They got to tell you what you need to do. If they can't, there's no point in going to see them. You need a specific thing right now. Well, you need to do the exercise that will work. That exercise has to work, and it will work quickly because you have fixed something that's fundamental. Fundamental weaknesses are the easiest things to fix, but you don't know what they are. Fundamental weaknesses are sit and you psychologically hide them. When you play, you don't realize that the hiding of them has become subconscious. You subconsciously hide your weaknesses from yourself. So you don't know what they are. And with that, I come to the fundamental aspect of this video. I arrive there, and you see, when I started this video, there was the black wall of chaos. What's the fundamental truth on this video going to be? And it's this. It's this right now. And I'll say it again, right? For you to play how you want to play, you need to know how you want to play. You own that. Nobody else. If you don't want to play complex stuff, don't play. If you don't want to be a funk drummer, do that. If you want to be a good songwriter drummer, do that. Have the conversation. Let's have the conversation here. What makes a good songwriter drummer? Let's do a whole video on that. You don't have to be the most technical, advanced drummer in the world. Nobody is. You don't have to play that game. If you find yourself playing that game, stop playing it. But by the same token, don't cover up the fact that you are not as good as you want to be by going, oh, I'm not bothered about technique. I'm more of a field player. When I hear someone like that, they may as well say, I'm not really bothered about technique. I'm just a mediocre player. And they know it, and they're covering it up. Never cover it up. Stare it in the face. Work out what it is. Get it down to the fundamental weakness that exists there. And then do the exercise that fixes that. I'm going to tell you 2 stories now. And hopefully this will identify the specific mindset you need to bring these 2 contradictory spheres of aesthetics together. Skill, technique, perfectionism, nailing it, having it on the grid, all the stuff that some drummers become obsessed with. Feel, viscerality, individuality, bonkersness, Keith Moonness. Let's call this the Keith Moonness here. And let's call this LA session musician here. To bring those 2 together, the togetherness will actually be dependent on you as a personality. Keith Moon's togetherness was right over here, but don't say Keith Moon had no chops. Every drummer sort of will watch him and go, what the hell's going on? Oh, that's actually quite good. Oh my God, that's amazing. He had chops. He had chops, incredible chops. But he had his own chops. Right, so I can tell you 2 stories. Chick Corea's electric band are making an album. Frank Gamboli's putting a guitar solo down. They're playing. He puts the guitar solo down. It's amazing. He knows he's nailed it. He's just nailed the best guitar solo. He hasn't got to chop it together in the studio because he's nailed it. And as he gets to the last bar, he hits the wrong note. So he goes into Chick, who's produced it, and said, Mr. Corea, could I just change that one note? Just drop it and change that one note. And Chick Corea turned around and said, no. Frank goes, why? Can't I just go in and change it? And he said, well, what did you play it for? And he goes, oh, I don't know. And he said, well, if you don't know why you played it, why did you play it? You need to try and play things that you know and that you've decided to play. Why did you play that note you don't like? That's basically what he asked him. That was your choice. You'll live with it because you chose it. It puts the autonomy completely on the musician. You choose what you want to play. That's brilliant because it means you own it. You can play however you want. You can be as sloppy, as tight as you want. You own it. No one else can tell you what to do. You can literally go to them. That's true, but you also own it. You can't cover it up. And if you're not liking it, you're going to go, right, I've got to fix that. It's got to be fixed. And you ain't going to fix it by using a bit of computer technology because that's what's destroyed the music business, isn't it? You're going to fix it by next time playing it correct. So you live with it. All right? You live with it. And that one note tells a story. Chick knew that. He wouldn't have left it in if he wasn't like, yeah, it's okay. Frank's a perfectionist. He wants to have his ego. There's a whole bunch of things that Chick Corea understood that maybe Frank didn't quite understand, and maybe he understands those now because we get wiser. Right. Another thing that I learned many, many years ago when I was touring all the time, I ended up with a shoulder problem and I couldn't play. And I went to see a sports physiotherapist and they were very good. And he looked at me and examined me and he said, your posture's wrong. He said, because your posture's wrong, and I knew this is when I was playing as well as when I was sitting or just being a normal person, my posture was wrong. He says, your posture's wrong because of a whole bunch of reasons. Psychological. A lot of people's posture's wrong is because they want to hide. So we all want to hide. So we change our posture. We go into defensive positions. We don't, the best posture, if you want to have good posture, just stand up like Superman. And then you've got good, great posture. That's how you sit behind a kit, like Billy Cobham, Superman. He used to wear a Superman t-shirt sometimes. It's all very strange. So, that's that was interesting, that was, wasn't it? I never thought that before. Anyway, so my posture was wrong. Now, because my posture was wrong, certain little muscles in my body had atrophied, but I didn't know that because I wasn't using them. They were sitting there going, and I'm just carrying on, more and more going to a certain point. And he said, I'm going to get you to use this muscle. Tiny little muscle in your back has atrophied. And so he set me up on this weird thing where I had a sliding floor. I was sat on a ball that had to get these two things and pull them forward that were on like things. And he put tiny little weights. He said, I've only put like 10 grams on. And as I pulled them, I fell on the floor. And I said, what happened there? And he says, it's that muscle. You've learned not to use that muscle, so it's atrophied. We need to strengthen that muscle up. And once that muscle is stronger, the next time you're playing the drums or whatever, and you suddenly twist and are forced to use that muscle, rather than just going, I'm atrophied and collapsing in front of you, it'll be okay. He did a whole bunch of other stuff, realigned nerves, stuck needles into me muscles. Oh, but it was amazing. I've never really had the back problems since then that I had back then. I altered my posture, which I did by bringing the drums up, and I still need to do that. But the point is here, I walked out and thought, all he had to do was, because this muscle was so atrophied, it was like a bodybuilder trying to get that extra few millimeters on the girth of their arm. A few exercises that he got me to do in the room, and then for a week later, that muscle was back on track. And I realized that weaknesses we have technically are based upon very simple things that we've tried to cover up. But if you get into those, you find what they are, and you start to practice in those areas, because that fundamental thing that you are working on, that everything's sat on, you've hidden and has atrophied. Once you strengthen it, everything above starts to feel real. And that's what everybody wants. There's no point in learning to play some, compound time Latin American rhythm in 21/16 for you to come and play that and still be crap when you're playing everything else. That is not learning the drums. Learning the drums is getting to a point where your fundamental being as a drummer enables you to do what you want to do. And you have to know what you want to do, and you have to know about those fundamental weaknesses. Now, that will be said on the internet, but what won't be said are these specific things that you have to be specific in your practice. You have to marry these two areas together. You have to understand what you're doing and know how to counteract it. You have to have evaluated who you are as a person and what you want to sound like, which means listening back to yourself. And you have to be aware that psychologically, you will be hiding this stuff. Right, drumming is a lot more about this than it is about this. When I'm an old man, you might say I'm an old man now, but when I'm a properly old man and, I'm racked with rheumatism and I can hardly play, and I know that's there. I know with all the practice I've done, at my age of 57, I really am starting to feel the limits of my body physically compared to when I was 37. So with that in mind, I would like that. My parameter of being a good musician is to be able to sustain your creativity. That's all that counts. So when I'm old, I want to still be playing the drums. If I'm like 90 years old, still playing the drums like Roy Haynes was, I will see that I have been a massive success as a drummer. When I meet my old students, I say, are you still playing the drums? Yeah, I'm in a band and we're playing the weekend. Brilliant. You're still a drummer. That's great. Job done. Doesn't matter how good you are. Still playing. Great. That's all that counts. All that counts. When I'm an old man and I'm playing some club, probably playing jazz, I want to be able to play, and I want people to enjoy playing with me, despite the fact that all the chops that I once have gone. And all that's left is the experience of being a musician. And I hope that the experience of being a musician and what I've learned about creatively being a musician, I hope that when that's all that's left, that is strong enough for me to be able to offer something to some other players that they enjoy. Right. So this has been my first of a series of, I think I've got a structure. I like to have a structure on YouTube. I like it to be simple. I like to be able to free associate. I don't like having a list of things to talk about like all the other YouTubers do, especially with drum exercises. You have to do that. I've been trying to look at a way of doing this. So I hope that this method is interesting to you. And if you want to now go away and become a member of this channel, you can now go and watch the full practice video. I could be doing one of these a day. Why? Because I need motivation to practice. And so me being clever is I'm going to use my practice to create some sort of YouTube outlet. And it sounds really cheap when you say it like that. But if I can practice to get my playing better and have some YouTube content that like 4 people enjoy, right? That's all that counts. I'll get the big views, don't worry. I know how to do that. But for the moment, this is for the drummers. And I hope you appreciated it. Thanks for watching.